All right, chapter 5. And let me remind you that I'm doing this video before I ever got around to deciding when things are going to be due. So that's why it's all blank on here. I assume that the one you're looking at actually has actual due dates on it. But I'm still working on that right now. It's actually May 21st at this point, so well before our course. Now, this chapter is all about t-tests, about how to test the statistical significance of variables. And so almost every single question I selected has to do just with that. For example, 5b. Let's see, am I on the right page for 5? Yes, I am. 5b. You have to test the hypothesis that, for equation 5.4, which means you're going to go back and find equation 5.4. Let me find it for you real quick. I'll tell you what page it's on. 5.2, 5.8. Go back this way. 5.5. I must be getting close. And 5.4. There it is. So it's on page 122. So you go back to the equation, on 5.4, and notice the t-values. That's what you're after. Okay, there's the t-values underneath. So it tells you to do, for equation 5.4, for coefficient number 3, whichever one that was, do a two-sided test on whether or not it's equal to 0 at the 1% level. So by the time you watch this video, you should have already seen the lecture. Inside the front page, you have the t-table. Crap, I wish I hadn't turned away from off that page. I believe I said one-sided, right? I'm sorry, 1%, not one-sided. It's actually two-sided. Heck, I should have kept my thumb in there. Let's see here. It is, here it is. Yeah, 1%. All right, so it's going to be a two-sided test. 1% level of significance. There's on the bottom, where it says two-sided, slide all the way across to 1%. So there it is on the far right. And then find the degrees of freedom. You're going to have to go back to the equation and figure out the degrees of freedom, and then do the test. All right, so, and I'm not going to say much more about that because I really want you to look at this and work on it, and because this has to become second nature, all right? These t-tests we're going to be doing time after time after time for the rest of the semester, all right? So I want you to really work on this and get to where, as I say, it's second nature to you. C is the same thing. Why didn't I assign A? That's never going to come up. It's never going to come up in real life that you need to see whether or not something is equal to some specific number other than 0. I mean, I say that it's exceedingly rare, so I didn't want you to spend your time on that. Number 7, I have you do an A, C, and, A, B, and C. Yeah. So on number 7, there it is. They give you a regression right there. There are your, what are they got in parentheses? Standard errors. They gave you standard errors and not t-scores. All right, so you're going to go back and look at the formula and figure out what you need to do. You don't have t-scores. You got to get them. A, you expect those to have positive coefficients. Create and test the appropriate hypotheses. Now, I don't give a crap about the HOHA thing, all right? I never ever use it. I've never seen anyone use it in real life. So when it says create and test the appropriate hypotheses, all I want you to say is, I expect when to be positive, and then conduct the test. Or I expect when to be negative, and then show, and the important thing here is, and you'll note in the homework it says, there's 3 points for there's 3 variables to look at here. Oh, sorry, two. And on each one, a half a point for getting the hypothesis right. In other words, hypothesizing whether it should be positive or negative. There's a half a point on that. There's a half a point on picking out the critical t-score that you should have picked out on this table right here. So you must report it. You must report the critical t you used. And then a half a point on appropriately comparing the critical t to the t-score in the question. And you'll notice I started doing this one year so I could remember myself how I was doing it from the previous year. And then I thought, well, heck, students might be interested in as well in how I'm distributing the points. So A, B, and C are all t-tests again. And on A, B, and C, let's see, on A, you have to do a hypothesis, pick out a critical t and do the test. On B, you don't have to do the hypothesis. On B, it says you expect it to be negative. Okay, so then all you have to do is the critical T in the test. And on the last one, likewise, C, you're not sure what to do, so you run a two-sided test. All right, so it tells you what the hypothesis is. So you only need to do the critical T and the test. So that's what I'm looking for on all of those. You're trying to decide if you can reject the null hypothesis, if you can reject the hypothesis that the variable is not significant, and you're hoping to reject it. Now, on 9, A, okay. On A, and if you look on here, you've got 5 explanatory variables. Every once in a while, he's asked this question before in previous editions, and sometimes people miss that second line. Don't miss that DPC and PC variables down below. He just couldn't fit it all on one line. So there's 5 variables to test. So on A, develop hypotheses about each one. Then pick out the critical T value for the, and note here, what's in parentheses is a standard error, but it does give you the T-scores. All right, so you don't have to calculate those yourself. You don't have the degrees of freedom, but you have the number of observations and the number of explanatory variables, so you can figure it out. And then do all these tests, all right? So you've got 5 of them to do, and on each of the 5, a half a point on making the right hypothesis, a half a point on picking out the critical T-score that's correct, and a half a point on correctly conducting the test itself. 5 times 1.5 is going to be 7.5. That's how much it's worth altogether. Part C. Do you think that they concluded that international price discrimination exists? So I just want you to think about that, and based on the regression results, do you think that they thought that these data suggested, or these regression results suggested that it really did occur? And then on E, just run the regression. So let's do that real quick, all right? I'm going to keep doing this, I think, for every chapter just to make sure. I don't want you to, I mean, it doesn't take that long to do, and I guess I should do this every chapter and show you. Notice that John Harvey tells you here on the homework the data set is drugs 5, and they made a mistake in the data set. IPC in the data set is what PC is in the book. So let's see, I need to go to the web page. We're in chapter 5. Stata. I'm going to click on that. Again, you can be extracting this and downloading this somewhere, and as I said, I downloaded all the data at once. Of course, I didn't know what I was going to use yet at the time. Drugs 5, there it is. Double click on it. That opened up Stata for you. And now, let me tell you what the regression is. You're going to do REG. P is the dependent variable for price. Price? Yeah, price level. And then GDPN, and I'm going to do that tab thing. GDPN and CVN, which actually also stands for nuclear carrier. PP. Yeah, they've got that one on here. Tab. Let's see here. And DPC. Tab. And PC. And this is the one that's wrong. There is no PC anywhere. It says PC in the book, but there is no PC here. I've run it already. I know this is right. They meant IPC. Well, actually, what they should have done was not make it IPC in the data and made it PC. Hit enter. I'm going to double check to make sure I got the right thing. Yeah, that's all right. So you know what to do. You block copy all the way up to the license to part. Right click, copy as picture, go to your document where you're going to turn it in, do that, and you're done. Okay, and that's all of chapter 5.